Ah, there we go. Forgot to unmute myself. Well, again, welcome to the Smithy, everybody. We got I see Paul's talking about spring starting down under. Autumn's going to be starting here soon. And you can tell because I got my hat back on. And it's just a nice cool morning. It says it's 61 degrees out here. This is comfortable for me. I had a few technical issues this morning. The powered hub that I want to use just can't seem to do better than put through stop motion animation. So that thing's not going to be too useful here in the stream. It turns out that the unpowered one I have actually does a better job of things, which kind of surprises me. But that means I got a late start in getting the fire going. But it's catching good. You can see charcoal's definitely hot. Now we just need to get the coal to light. Let's go and throw some more coal on top of that. Pull some coke that I've got here on the back over the top of that. Let's see some of that smoke come up. I'm almost to the point where I can yeah, my audio says it's good now. Both of you on YouTube, we should be good at this point. Smell that coke getting lit up. I know I'm doing it right now. All I was smelling before was charcoal burning. Oh yeah, we're starting to see some temperatures. Yeah, 61 degrees. It feels so good out here. I'm much happier in spring and autumn than in summer. That's why I missed the seasons down when I lived in Orlando. We basically had 2 seasons there. Nice, lasted about a month, maybe to 3 months, and hot and muggy. All right, we're to the point where I can clean up this taper that I left off with last week. Of course, it would help if I'm using the right side of the hammer. For the newbies who come along my channel, this is a rounding hammer. It has 2 sides, a rounded side and a flat side. Well, it's also not round, flat, but flatter side. And they're capable of moving metal aggressively or less aggressively. Yeah, nah, you can't sack the sound engineer, or else you're just going to sack the blacksmith. All this is just a one-man show, unless I have a visitor come along. But it's still, I'm the tech guy at that point, and they're the ones that actually know how to smith if they're coming along here. So, just a little cleanup there, and then I need to move it down into the fire. That's a pretty long taper, so we'll make a long skinny leaf this time. Put this deeper in so I'm not heating that part up again. Yeah, you would think I'd be better at the tech stuff, considering I write software for a living, and I used to work in hardware break fix for the longest time and software support. But it's a lot of variables, and that's what I'm not very good at. There's a lot of variables. So, there we go. Let's go ahead and put some more coal in the back there, so we're cooking that. This is the simplest scoop you can make. I learned how to do it watching Black Bear Forge. John Switzer, just take a can, and it becomes more than just a scoop for my coal. It's also a water scoop for differential quenching, or with the hole in the bottom. Oh, it would be nice if I actually pointed you at the thing I was trying to show you from. So there it is. Scoop, handle, a little bit of decorativeness just because it's a blacksmith's tool, and it's just a tin can, and then I can either scoop and dump a lot of water, or I can scoop and pour just a little at a time, or if I'm wanting to be fancy, I can just scoop and drip to where I need it to be quenched. Come on, charcoal, stay where I want you so that you can keep the fire going. Yeah, every morning, lighting my fire is just a little bit of paper, light that up, put the charcoal on top, let that catch, throw some air at it so it gets hot to forging temperature, and then throw the the coal on top of that. There's a lot of different ways people can light a fire. One of these days I'm going to go back and do that whole cool fire lighting thing that can be done where you just hit a piece of metal with a hammer until it gets hot enough to light paper or light kindling. For those who've been watching me do this stream after stream or have watched earlier streams, you know that this is a new technique that I'm using now that I picked up watching Yamez over at Island Metal Forge. It's not as precise for me yet, but I got to practice it to get to where it's precise. I can hear the airflow in there now. It's doing really well. Freight train going by behind me. Keep drawing that out. And I am using the aggressive side of my hammer now. Come over here. I know what I want, which is a full way across with the stem. I think I'm gonna heat that the leaf side up a little bit more because I can see that this is where the edge of my leaf is here, but it's not there. So it doesn't line up. We can make that happen. There are no mistakes in blacksmithing, only happy little redesigns. I'm not a Bob Ross, but I do subscribe to his ideology. We're out here to enjoy a craft, enjoy a hobby that involves doing something with your hands. Whether that's painting or woodworking or blacksmithing or 3D printing or working on a car. It's things my buddy does. Having a creative outlet helps you remember that we're all creative. So I'm going to go ahead and use the edge of my anvil to be more defining of this area. And go back over here. Although I don't see a good reason to do so at this point. I think we're about right where I want it. That is true. That is true. Thanks for mentioning that. I might not have the best stand at the moment for using my horn. And there it is, all the way across. So now we just round it up. Rounding it up will make it a little longer too, but that's cool. And now we have that shape that I'm more used to when I want to have a leaf. Yeah, I've got it sitting on a tree stump. I had a silver maple in my yard when we bought the property a few years back. And a couple years ago, about a year after we got here, lightning had taken its toll on it. A lot of rain on that September, and down it came onto our house, across our cars. Did a little damage to one of the cars, nothing major. Did a little damage to the roof of my house, but it's a pretty solid house, hand-hewn timbers from the 1800s. Oh, almost burnt it. Did you guys see that sparkler? I did. Take corners off. For the newbies that wonder why I only did 2 sides, it's because the anvil is the other half of your tool. It basically does whatever you do with your hammer, the anvil's pushing back. So you can see we're nearly to round at this point. All I need to do is take off a few more sides and it's done. It's going to be a thick stem this time. That's all right. This is what I get from trying to learn what I can do over the horn. Might end up going back to my My Brian Brazil methodology, though, just, it works. I will say, I think I got that drawing out done faster this way, though. It's just, well, no, I think I am going to stick with this for a little while because I want to see if I can get the habit, get the skill built up. Don't give up so fast. That's what I'm saying. When a skill doesn't feel comfortable, don't give up so fast. Trying not to make a sparkler and burn it up, but I don't have it so thin as that it should burn up. Hey, Steven. Eric, welcome. No, not power loss. All right. Basically, we're doing a step now known as planishing. I'm not trying to move metal a whole lot. I'm just trying to make it so it doesn't have so many facets. Smooth it. You can do that into black. That's why I didn't have to get it up to a very high temperature this time. And in the black, you can actually see where the facets are. You know where to knock them down. That's pretty good. I think it's time to move on to the leaf. I piled my Coke up high enough now that it's pouring over. Yep, that's true. But for me, it also means that I have a little bit more control at the base of the leaf as to what its shape will be, because I know exactly how much that fuller size is. I'm not used to the fullering over the horn yet to get that. And as you saw, towards the base of the horn, it doesn't rock so much. But when I want to get to that fine definition out to the tip of the horn, yeah, I need to do a better mounting here for my anvil. So it's all the Brian Brazil method, if you will. In the long run, it's all the same motions, I guess you will. It's just what size fuller do you have to work with underneath your hammer and material. And is your anvil ready to be able to take the blows? Good point there, Paul, John. All right. Start with the smushing, and then we'll go with the moving. Yep. This thing needs to be quieted. For newbies, again, what I'm doing is the difference between using the toe of the hammer, the front, the side furthest from you, versus the heel of the hammer, the side closest to you. I think it's pretty obvious where those terms come from, but think about your foot and you'll know exactly where that came from. And there we have, I think I'm going to heat it up again just a little bit so I can get a little bit more movement out right here on this lobe, because it's not out as far as this one. So doesn't have to be perfect. All of my leaves are different. I'm not trying to make reproduction quality. I'm just trying to make a production quality. If I had to do reproduction, then I would grind away, or I would have a block for doing drop forging, which is when you basically press the material into it. Think what you used to do as a kid with Play-Doh. Whenever you see all your tools that talk about drop forging, that's exactly what they're talking about. There we go. And now, we'll set this aside for a second. Grab my straight peen. Push the fuel back in before it falls on the floor. Got a good deep fire going, so I'm not worried about the fire going out or the heat not being good where I want it to be. I will say, this V-tunnel, I guess would be the best way to say it, style of forge has been great when it comes to clinker control. I haven't had any kind of air blockage due to clinkers the whole time I've been forging. Now, I do have occasionally, because of the fact that the tweer is there we go, something nice and leafy shaped. I think this is a nice looking broader leaf than the big ones I normally do, so this bigger stem is going to look really nice with it. All right, let's go ahead and heat up the stem again so I can bend it where I want it. I have to go deeper for that. Hello. SM Rhett Pekka. I don't know that I've seen your name come across any of the streams I've been in before. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, Pekka. Now, if you haven't been here before, which, you know, tell me if you have, and I just hadn't been paying a close enough attention, but if you haven't been here before, you'll know, you'll like to know that I start every one of my live streams so that the beginner coming to it, because this is for beginners, this is a channel for me just taking the journey. Read it in reverse. Aka. Oh. Hello. So, I was going to say, I start every one of my live streams doing a beginner project, or what I consider to be a really good beginner project, which is make these leaves. They teach you all the skills you're going to need. Well, a good chunk of the skills you're going to need as a smith. And yet it's a little project that when you're done, you can enjoy the work by handing it out as a gift or sell it at a craft table or accept terms. Ah, that's awesome. a Jurgen. Nice. And then after I do the leaf, assuming I don't somehow burn it up in my forge, which somehow is me glossing over the many times I've burned it up in my forge, mostly because I'm working with a fuel source that I'm not as familiar with, coal. Most of my work had been previously done with charcoal at Ren fairs. So let's get over here. Go ahead and make a taper here, reverse taper I should say, and round it so it looks like it's still part of the stem of a tendril that I'm going to end up making here. All right, let's go ahead and scroll that tendril through a bend off scroll. Need my tongs. Let's go with these. Don't need this now. "6:30 p.m. That's not horrible. I really appreciate you coming in. How have things been going? Assuming you are the Jurgen that I know from Lightbend. How have things been going back there in Germany?" All right, here we go. Let's see if I can make this look nice. This is where you just twist it around, and then you just keep on twisting. And because that's a weak area anyway, it's going to snap off. But it's not going to snap where I wanted it to. Hey, that doesn't look horrible anyway. I'll end up having to cut that off before I can use it again. Might as well do it real quick right now. Go through all the trouble to make a pretty, cool that off, save it for next week. And that's the first drop on the ground. That means it's time for me to take a drink of coffee. You enjoy whatever beverage is the appropriate one for you today. There's that. Thought I would end up having a quick breakfast of Pop-Tarts this morning before I started the channel, but that shows you how long it took for me to get the technical stuff taken care of, which I wanted done before we started the live stream instead of during it like I did last time, having a late start. East Coaster, John. That's where a good chunk of my friends are. Back in the Florida area. Family, too. Now that I think about where everybody is at the moment. All right. I'm going to go ahead and continue that scroll because it's there. Why not? And yes, we Smiths use the side of our anvil as much as the top of, well, not as much, but we use the side of our anvil as well as the top of our anvils. Okay, so not the Jurgen I worked with, but another Jurgen in Germany. I mean, big surprise that there are more than one Jurgen in Germany. But you notice it took me saying your name twice to remember that it's a ya sound, not a ja sound. Thanks to him, though, is how I learned that. You know, I don't know if it's, you know what, half of me wants to say, yeah, you're right, daggers are useless, but the other half of me says there was a huge market out there of people who would disagree with me so much. I do have a dagger. I enjoy my dagger. It is a weapon I will never use, but it is so cool. It is a twisty dagger. Now, there's got to be a right name for it, but it has 3 edges, and it's twisted, and it's also Damascus. I'll have to bring it out sometime. Its handle is round and has grooves for your fingers, because the concept behind this dagger is, well, you know, most are plunge daggers, but this is a type of plunge dagger. You hold tight as you hold loose as you push it in, and then you hold tight as you pull it out. And unfortunately, whatever you do that to is not walking away from the experience. Got that a little too hot. Let's brush it off and see if my talking, I left it in the fire. I didn't even have it turning. So yeah, that made for some ugliness. We'll see what I can do about that. Maybe when I go to, actually, we'll see. I can't tell if that's just grit from the fire or if I actually made the metal ugly. Bring it up closer so you can see what I'm talking about. Go in the direction of the camera. And of course you can't see that because that's not how that works. Let's do it this way. Nope, all the way in. There we go. Back here. Face the, there we go. You can see how it got some ugliness within the, and that's, I can't tell if that's probably burnt metal. That's probably burnt metal. So, it is what it is. Doesn't mean I'm throwing it away. It just means that whoever decides that this is their favorite one on the table, they're getting some character that's different than the others. Or I might go in there. I do have a rotary tool, and I might dress it up. You put a little grindstone on it and do something about it. But right now what I want to do is see if I can close it up a little. So we'll leave that be. And we'll go back in a little deeper so I'm not getting that spot so hot. Yeah, that is absolutely the case. You know, we have a commonality, and that's what makes family true, right? And just like real family, blood family, let's call it that. There's the family you were born with, and then there's the family you make. And just like the one you're born with, you don't always have to agree on everything. You just have to respect folks enough to let them have their beliefs, as long as that belief isn't hurting somebody. As soon as that belief starts hurting somebody, we're going to then excommunicate you from the family. All right, that's a nice enough scroll that I'm going to go with that and then bring it around. Actually, I'm going to cool that off so I don't accidentally burn it as fast. By just dunking it in the water for a second. Oftentimes the family you make are folks you're not going to have a lot of disagreements with, but if the family you're making is people who enjoy the same hobbies, well, that's the way things go. I used to hang out with a bunch of folks in the Adrian Empire, they called themselves. All right. Let's use, well now, I just realized that I had taken my, switch this over. Let's see if it's actually pointing at what I want it to. No, not yet. There we go. I had taken my little tiny bending jig out when I was doing some file work last week and forgot to put it back. So, turn around, try to use it, and it's not there. Adjust. All right. But the Adrian Empire stuff was a whole lot of fun, and that's where I learned blacksmithing. And I still have what we call as family from there now. Some of the best people I ever hung out with. Now I see a challenge. I'm going to end up breaking off my leaf. You can see the challenge here with me. I'm going to just bring you back over to the anvil and show that to you. So this one is very thin here at the base of the leaf going into the stem. And as a result, it's wanting to bend there faster than it's wanting to bend anywhere else. So I'm going to end up having to heat this up and quench the leaf and then still get time enough to finish my bend. Otherwise, that's going to snap right off. Or bend in ways I don't want it to bend. And now I'm being extra cautious because I know how fast this can just burn right up. So the first rule of blacksmithing, because I haven't said this in a while, and newbies coming along need to know this really bad, is all metal is hot. So yes, at the base where I'm holding this leaf by the tongs, it is hot. Let's get a second pair of tongs here. I quenched off the leaf. How do I get a hold of this so it will do what I want it to? And I have often seen that I'm not alone in finding that the bending part is the hardest part. Getting, let's use a hammer. When all else fails, switch back to a hammer. It's still wanting to bend there. All right, let's get it hot enough that I can push things around a little bit. I was watching Roy over at Christ Center. Oh, that's funny. Let's go to the anvil. That was because my tongs fell right onto my my stream deck. But what I was saying is I was watching Roy work on this awesome, over at Christ Centered Ironworks, for those who need to know which channel to go look at. Working on this door knocker, and it was gratifying to see somebody who's so, and of course he doesn't know this. This isn't something that he did on purpose or anything like that. For somebody like me to watch him, who's barely coming along in this craft. He's somebody who's not barely coming along in his craft. He knows what he's doing, and even he still can struggle a little bit getting the bends exactly where he wants them to be. Seems to be the most challenging part. Or as John Switzer would say, it's the fiddly bits. Hey, Greg. I have no idea. I'm not doing this specifically for views, but I have no idea. One thing that I did see Roy do that I'm not doing here is he broke out his, so that's perfect. No key ring is going to fall off of that. Well, perfect's not the right word. Functional. It will do exactly what I want it to. And just so I say before, all metal is hot. This is getting to the point where it's getting a little bit uncomfortable to be touching my tongs up in here. So all metal is hot. But that will suffice. The biggest key is close it up in a way that makes it so your key ring won't fall off of it. And now you got a little key ring charm. That's what they're called. I always forget what they're called. I always talk about making a leaf key ring because that's what everybody else calls it. But they're not a key ring, they're a key ring charm. And I'm pedantic. Nice to meet you. So there we have it. Let me go ahead and grab my noisemaker here and cool off my tongs that can actually burn me at this point. So when you walk into a blacksmith's shop, if you're just somebody coming along who thinks this is a neat thing to watch, not somebody who actually wants to be a blacksmith, just assume everything in that shop is hot. So for example, if I had just turned around, I have done it, and put my tongs up on there, and then you come along and grab it by the nibs, there's a good chance you're going to get burned. It's still hot. Well, not hot. It's still warm, like a cup of coffee fresh out of the pot warm to the touch at the moment. And that's after me quenching it and watching it stop steam. So when you come into my shop, just assume all metal is hot. It is the safest assumption. Hey, Transcendental Artist Studio. Folks need to follow that one. They got a great podcast. Would you please drop the name of your podcast into the chat so that you know, my brain, who can't remember it but is subscribed to it, you know, isn't going to be what we have to count on to say the name of your podcast. It's something like Impractical Blacksmiths, or yeah. But the podcast is available over on Spotify. Impractical Blacksmithing. Thank you. Thank you. Sully is a lot of fun to watch, whether it's on his channel or over on Yamez's channel. Yamez, and one second, it'll come up to me in a second. Speargrass Forge, that's the other channel. They collaborate on Yamez's channel, Island Metal Forge. Every Saturday morning, my time, I think it's 7 a.m. on Sundays. So that's 10 a.m. Eastern. They do that podcast live on YouTube. And it's a whole lot of fun. They are very attentive to their audience. That's one of the reasons it's so much fun. But they also come bearing a load of interesting and oftentimes useful information for blacksmiths, whether it's talking about metals or talking about habits. Yeah, it's something you got to come see. All right, I didn't drop anything. I just felt I needed a drink of coffee after gabbing so much. Let me go grab my infernal noisemaker, which my wife kindly bought me a second one. I gotta switch over to the Smithy view for this. So, infernal noisemaker for quickly cleaning up my work. Second one with, this time it's a grinding disc, and I might leave the grinding disc on there for the moment. I don't typically need a cutoff wheel because typically I use my tiny little portable bandsaw. So thank you, wife. That would be Christina if she happens to drop on here and say howdy. My beautiful bride of, yes, let me get it over here where it can be seen, 15 years. That's my first and only tattoo. Go ahead and switch over. You can see I'm just doing a quick scrub of the metal. This is just a lot faster than trying to run over to the, or I should say, break out my butcher block tool and try to catch all the corners that I can't get into. I gotta share something for those who are like me and love trivia. The sparks you see coming off steel, those are the same sparks that you get when you use a fire starter. It is not the flint that's doing that, it's the steel. And that is basically instant rust. What you're doing is chipping off the steel in a small enough quantity that it can instantly turn to rust as soon as it hits the oxygen. And therefore it becomes fire. And what's really fun to know is then if you do it with steel, you'll get the sparks, always. But if you do it, I should say with iron, you'll get basic sparks. And if you do it with steel, you'll get the sparks you were just seeing, because this is common steel. It's not tool steel. It is what do they call it? Cold rolled, steel. It's nothing special. But if you go and get steels that are high carbon content, those sparks then turn into little. I did the wrong scene again. Those sparks turn into little fireworks. And so every time you see a picture of them trying to explain, this is what was hard for me to understand as a new smith. When they show a picture trying to explain what it looks like when you're telling the difference between low carbon and high carbon steels, they're trying to show you that yes, a spark has come off. There's a line they often show when they do that, but then they show a starburst, and what they're trying to say is every one of those sparks ends up being like starbursts every time you get able to strike off a spark from a high carbon steel. So let's warm this up, put some beeswax on it. That's the first project done. The second project, this is time to be getting things ready for gift giving seasons. And so the second project will be the same project I did last week, just with a little bit less steel. And that was a bracelet. So beeswax, get that over here. It's not going to take a lot to heat up this steel. I'm not trying to get it red hot. I'm trying to get it stove hot, oven hot, basically about 300 degrees. All right, hot enough to melt and let the wax run. Let's see if we get that. Yep, and a little bit of smoke, because if you get smoke, it's getting into the pores, as we said last week, of the metal. Hard to think of it that way. We always talk about things that are porous. And I just dropped that on the ground, so I'm going to dunk it off Get the dirt off, put it back in the fire. I've got dirt in the wax now. Great. Let me grab my little towel here. Where'd you go? There you are. A little rag. Wipe that off. Let's do this again. This time, not drop it on the ground. Must mean it's time for another sip of coffee. All right. And all right. We'll leave that there because I'm going to need it in a minute. Warm that back up again. Are they? I have to look what, yeah, mild steel. Thank you. That's the word I was going for. I think Clark Kent, mild. Mobile data. Is that a sign that it's time for you to go to sleep and wake up to a powered day? Or are you going to hang out for a little bit longer there, Paul? All right, you can see the smoke of where I had put the wax on previously as it burns off. Oh, that's hot enough to burn me. Hand slipped. Gotta be careful. Okay. And for anybody who's worried, yes, there's a little wax on my anvil at this point, but it's no big deal. And it's back onto the ground again. I just cannot hold on to this thing at this point. Probably should be using flat jaw tongs. Let's go ahead and plunge this thumb in. Let's find out how bad I got myself. It looks like I just got annoyed by the wax, not so much that I got burnt. Hot wax. That's a different kind of game. All right. At this point, because it's still warm enough, I can wipe off the dirt. I got plenty of wax on it. I just don't want the dirt in the wax. There we go. That should keep it from rusting for a little while. The wax doesn't cause any trouble for my anvil. It'll actually mean that spot will rust a little less quickly. And it'll basically burn off next time I place a piece of hot steel on top of it. Yeah, I did burn myself. It did actually create a blister. It's that fast, how fast one can actually have fun with this. So, no major damage, but I just basically brushed that metal as I was working it. So be careful, people. Oh, speaking of being careful, I still got the goofy glasses on instead of the safety glasses. I'm not doing anything that should have caused that trouble, or a great concern, but I was using that wire brush, powered wire brush no less. So it would have been smart if I just put on the safety glasses. Let's switch over now and we can start the next project. So, next project means I need to break back out this piece of metal. We're going to go ahead and this time, so when we did this last time, and I was done, and I'm going to recheck it right now, because measure twice, cut once, right? That's how it goes. We're going to do that right now. If I'm not mistaken, I used 6 inches of material, and it came out adult sized, and that's perfectly fine. My wife loves it. But she did tell me that if I'm going to make a kid-sized version of this, not only does it need to be smaller, but it probably needs to be thinned out more because it's a bit heavy. So that means I definitely don't need six, I think actually, if I remember correctly, this was 5.5 inches now that I remember. Let's check. As I said, measure twice. So it was, this is one of the reasons I love using this version of it. Hey, there we go. 129 millimeters, 129.5 millimeters, aka 5 inches. Ah, I did have that right in my memory. So 5 inches. And what we need to do is use less material for a smaller one, but also less material for a for what am I trying to say here? See if I can get my thoughts out. For a thinner one, that's it. So I'm thinking, and this is all just prototyping again, that I'll take and use, let's go to 4 inches and see what happens. Which, 4 inches there. Good enough. Doesn't have to be exact anyway. And then just because I have you guys, again, it'd be great if you're actually seeing what I'm seeing. So my 4 inches instead of 5. It's probably still going to be too much, but it'll be lighter weight for sure because of the way I'll draw it out. And then for those folks in the other regions of the world, we'll go with 10 centimeters. I think my math is right still. Because it says 101 millimeters. I think centimeters is hundreds, mil is thousands, so that would be 10 centimeters. All right, so, you know what would have been good though? Is if I actually had marked that. So, let me get my, what I'm missing, now that I realize it, I am missing my little center punch tool. But we will do it this way. We're going to come over here. And we're going to probably drop that on the ground. Oh, there we go. We'll mark that spot. There we go. The other one I'm going to put away. I probably shouldn't have had laying there while I was marking it. For those who've not seen this, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the Vice camera because the Vice camera is the one that'll be able to move this way. I'm going to swing this around. What you can see is that's the actual forge. You're just normally looking into the fire of it, you know, when I don't knock the camera. There we go. I need to give it a spin so that I'm not losing my fire. Put back my chisel. Good, we still got heat in there. So the first prototype was winging it. The second prototype, I'm now honing it into something that we can reproduce. But this is still a prototype. So yeah, cooled off enough, I can touch it, put it in my pocket. We'll go ahead and switch you back over to the anvil where I'll actually be working again. But yeah, oh, what I was gonna say is, that's my forge. And it's set up in such a way that I can actually use these layers here as a rack for my stock. You can see I am woefully low on stock. I need to do something about that. And the only reason I haven't is my friend down the street has a whole bunch of metal sitting in the barn waiting for me to come over and do something with it. Take it away, turn it into something, whatever that's going to be. So let's go ahead and bring that back over there. Anvil. Let's see what people have been saying. Forged titanium shaft for coffee roasting plant. Really? Wonder why they wanted titanium. Go ahead and tell this to remind me this afternoon. Hope you do get this back up and running, your power back up and running again pretty quick, Paul. Coffee roasting plant every time, hot wax. Yeah, so I'm not alone there, dropping it every time. Got it. Well, and in this case, the problem is also partially my fault. I had this chunk of hot wax. I'm going to end up having to melt it and glue it to another chunk of wax. This piece is getting to be too small for me to be handling close to the material. Oh, hi Bruce. How you doing, buddy? Come here. You can't see him at the moment, but Bruce is hanging out here with me. So let's make sure I can see that mark that I made. There it is. Keep it up in the... Let's go ahead and get things going. A safety poster. Actually, you know what? I probably do. I don't have visitors out here to the Smithy very often yet, but I do expect that that will change. Measure once, cut 5 times isn't better. Yeah, I've done that too. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I had to order mine. I haven't gone to find a blacksmith supply here in the area. I know they have to exist because there are a lot of smiths here in the Seattle area. And surprisingly, I haven't found a way to make friends with any of them yet. I have been told that if I were to take the trip down to Longview for the Northwest Blacksmith Association meetings, that there would be a chance I'd meet some folks that are in my area here, but it always seems that when I see who's at those things, and I haven't made it, just mainly because it's such a trip, it's not people here. It's people more from down closer there and Oregon. And I've lost my my hammer. So there's the mark I made. I don't know if you can see that, but it's right there. All I'm going to do is pull it back here, flip it around, and do a set down. So I can find it again pretty easily. All right, there we go. So now that's where I will work and draw all this out in flat. And except at the ends, I'm going to actually want to keep it close to, well, about I'd say 2 millimeters fatter than it currently is, but I want it to spread out even more at the ends. We'll see how I do on that. Yeah, the meetings are about 2 hours away, Greg. That's the problem. So I can continue to let that smash out. But then here, you've got to pull it back in. That's about where I want it. So using the edge as a fuller, I'm just basically making it get longer and a bit wider, but in the long run I'm going to actually pull back how much wider I'm going to let it get, except at the ends. But I definitely want it thinner than that, because that's about how thick I made it last time. So let's keep fullering and pulling it out. straighten it out a little bit. Now, what I just did, if you were working with high carbon steel, I wouldn't recommend. But being that this is mild steel, bending it, it's less likely to build stress fractures. I wouldn't say I bent it cold, but it was colder than it probably should have been. Yeah, I agree. It isn't horrible, but it's a 4-hour round trip, right? And it's only a day trip, so it's not like I'm spending an overnight. Maybe that's how I could actually make it fun, is turning it into an overnight trip. Or I shouldn't say fun, but make it so that the 4-hour investment, without knowing what I'm going to get on the other side, since I've never done it, is worth doing, and that is make it an overnight investment. Come on. There we go. For those wondering, this is just a 1/4 inch stop. And all I'm doing when I'm doing it in the black like this is dressing it. Yeah, I would agree. And I know you're not talking about my chickens, which I now have 20 chicks sitting in a small greenhouse that we have. 10 Easter eggers and 10, what do they call it? Not unique, rares of various types. So you're not talking about bringing those down with me. But the chick I would love to take down with me has to take care of her dad. But yeah, then an overnight would definitely be a lot more fun. And I forgot to finish dressing the end here. All right, so we have reapportioned this material from being 1/4 inch square to being, well, let's find out. And now I've realized I own the wrong micrometer. We will fix that. Well, let's finish this first. You know, one of the things I've noticed that is incredible to me is how great our pattern matching skills are and how we put them to use in interesting ways. I can tell, and I'm sure you can too when you're sitting there looking through the camera, where things are not in the right proportion, where I need to make it bigger, where there are high points or low points. You know, and it's not like we have the best eyes as a species, and yet we can do it because we've got amazing pattern matching skills. So let's go ahead and quench this, because the problem with this micrometer is it's plastic. What kind of fool buys a plastic micrometer? So I took it from 5.5 mil square to 8 mil square. Yeah. I mean, not 8 mil square, 8 mil across. So about the 2 to 3 millimeters I was saying I was going to get, and there's 3 millimeters. Now, I think 3 millimeters is probably still too thick, and it's not even at this point, so I've got to go and do a little bit more cleaning up there. But this time I'm measuring because I want to know what I did so I can do it again. They do have online activity, but from what I saw, from the places they sent to us, it was, how can I put this? I didn't see any, unlike this, I didn't see any live stream chat happening. So, wasn't able to make community that way. Oh, you were talking about taking the chickens. Oh, okay, well in that case. As my ladies of the household say, my side chicks. When I say ladies of the household, that's because I have my beautiful wife living with me, obviously. Well, not so obviously. There's sometimes that doesn't happen, right? But I also have her wonderful best friend living with us as well. And when you get a woman's best friend living in the same household as you, it's an interesting time. They both gang up on you is what ends up happening most of the time. Every now and then she'll actually back me. That's a nice thing to happen occasionally. I just realized that I said I needed to dress that end and I still hadn't done it. So let's work on making it thinner still. Okay. Bring it back in. Cool. My suspicion is 4.5 inches is still going to be too much material for a child's bracelet. It'll be fine for an adult's, but that's my suspicion. All right, let's dress that end that I said I didn't do. Yeah, well, I mean, they're in one of my side yards basically, so side chicks, there you go. Actually, the reason they got called that was because when they were chicks, my first batch, we had them on on our porch on the side of the house, and I would go out and sit with them so that they would become pets, not just chickens that you have to chase around the yard when you needed to actually get them to care for them. So that worked for the first batch. Then my neighbor ended up bringing over a bunch more that he got from somebody he was doing work for. And he has his own chickens, and he didn't need any more. And you can see why it would have been smart to have dressed that before I started doing all the changes to the material's shape and size. All right, warm it up again. And so, yeah, they were my side chicks as I would go out there and sit with them and hand feed them and make sure that they were more like pets. We're doing that again with this new set of 20. But in between that time, we ended up taking a trip, and one of the sets that we got didn't get to have that handling, so they were less likely to be able to be reachable. But I changed that over time. And then we had the whole flock of 13 of them, 12 of them, something like that, handed to us by our neighbor, and that was awesome. But they weren't as easily handled either. I want to count that as my material, so I'm going to have to think about how to deal with that. Let's do it again. Maybe a differential quench. Let's go ahead and get that started here. Have it sitting there waiting for me. One would ask, why do you want chickens as pets? And I'm like, well, wouldn't it be great if when you go out there to feed them or get their eggs or whatever like that, they don't feel threatened by you? That was my idea. All right, differential quench, that's what I was doing. All right, that was way overkill. Let's just go in from the top and heat just that section. The rest is now cooled off. Also, when they treat each other with disrespect, and you got to go find out if they actually cause themselves any harm, it's a lot easier to do if you can pick them up and hold and take a look at them. And at this point, I've basically got one rooster I can't easily do that with, and he was a gift to us from a neighbor as well. We live in a rural neighborhood where other folks are raising chickens and other livestock, and you discover everybody loves to help you join the cult. All right. Okay, that worked. That worked. Let's go ahead and do it again. Heat up just that area, and then we'll quench off the part I don't want done. This is showing me that I have not enough fuel on top here, or else I wouldn't be able to see all that wonderful heat. There we go. I don't actually have to cool it. That's going to probably be as good as I can make it. So we'll see if I can turn that into a fishtail when I finish up the rest of this. All right. What do I have at this point? I still need to see if I can draw that out a little bit thinner. Yeah, see, and that's the best, really. They come out and greet me every morning, mainly because I haven't figured out how to keep them in their. I know exactly what's going on that makes it they don't stay in the run. I didn't wire wrap the chicken wire to prevent corners coming open. I need to do that, especially, well, now that the season's cooled off a bit, I can afford to get out there and do it. But now we've got a new idea of what we're going to do. See, now that's getting about the thinness I think I want to try it this time, and then see how it feels. Any thinner than that, we'll see. We'll see. Let's go ahead and do that with the other half of it. But yeah, need to get out there, and the reason we put them into chicken runs to begin with, they started as free-range chickens. That's the way that we wanted to keep them through the 2 acres that we have here. But then we lost a few to aerial predators, and then we lost a bunch of them to coyotes. The coyotes we've handled. The aerial predators seem to have backed off pretty much. We handled the coyotes 2 ways. I'll just say that my neighbors handled the coyotes to thin out the herd. Well, the pack, there you go, that's the word. Because all of their animals were being threatened too. And then we stepped up our game by adopting an aging pair of animals that had been companions to a horse. An aging horse that passed away. And that was a goat and a donkey. And apparently, donkeys are mortal enemies to coyotes, so real good way of securing your flock. You don't mind having a donkey in your household. Of course, my wife will tell you that she's had an ass in the household for a while, so she's used to it. Ah, come on. I'm letting things get out of straight and flat. Let's fix that. And because of it, it's wanting to twist in my hand, which is not comfy. There we go. I've got a twist in it. This is obviously a situation where I'm not a bladesmith. Because a bladesmith wouldn't have let that happen. They get their twists when they go into quench, not when they're working the material. We're pretty close to where I want it though. So. Speaking of the devil. Say hi to Rosie. Hi, Rosie. You stay out there, okay? Hi, baby. You stay out there, all right, baby? She's gonna come nosing in here in a minute. Is what she does. Jack Mine's Blacksmith and Petting Zoo. All right, that's good enough. I need to planish that. And then we're going to spread that end and see how it comes out. Well, that's the thing. Our chickens are never meant to be meat chickens. They're egg chickens. So they know that they're safe from that. Well, they may not know it, but they also don't not know it. If that made any sense. And we end up feeding our dogs eggs, feeding our neighbors. Well, actually, what we do is help our nonprofit neighbor with eggs she can sell. She has a nonprofit where she hosts summer camps for underprivileged kids, and she opens her property up to the public to do bounce houses and petting zoo and see a working active farm, because her property is a part of the historic preservation zone that we have here. That went the wrong kind of clunk. Let's pull that out. I'm pretty sure that's clinker. Bruce, get in here. Bruce, get in here. She gonna stomp you. Get in here. Come on. I'm not sure that it's just coyotes she's mortal enemies with. I think it's kind of any dog-shaped thing. And she does not like Bruce. And yes, I know you guys told me he looks more like a rabbit, but she seems to identify him as dog. I don't need to get this very thin metal very hot. And all I'm doing now is trying to get it a consistent width. There we go. A little deeper in the fire to get that part done, and we're ready to cut it off and flare the ends. Now she's over visiting me on that side of the smithy. And if that doesn't demonstrate just how small the smithy is. You went rolling in the ash and dust, didn't you? Yeah, you did. Ah, it's good life. It's good life. Greg, it's a family show. She always is breaking into my smithy because in the past she realized if she went into the adjacent storage barn, she would find her food in there. It is no longer in there, but she hasn't figured that out yet. So, yeah. So at this point she's like, "You're gonna give me something, right?" And I'm like, "Nope." And I think we're good. I think that's a fairly consistent. Looks like it actually might be a little thinner on that end than this end. I haven't decided if that's important enough for me to worry about. A lot of this is just, what am I willing to put up with as my for the result of my art effort? And I realize in this one, I'm only trying to impress myself, really. This is not a final piece, but I also would like to get it right, or what I want to call right, so I can actually see that it's doable, what amount of material it takes, things like that. So taking a little bit more time than I probably should. If you can draw it up so that I can understand what you mean by dice flats, obviously I'd be willing to give it a go, especially for Extra Life. That's one that I support as well. John, thank you for stopping in. Have a great weekend. Okay, so I think that this area is just a little bit too thick. Let's thin it out. I'm using the wrong side. Thought it wasn't giving me a nice smooth finish. Thing needs to have some magnets attached to it. It's getting too loud, and I don't know why it's louder. It feels like it's louder today than it's ever been. It's got to be an atmospheric thing. All right, that is pretty close to done. Getting to be almost too thin in here. Let's see if I can thin that out just a hair bit more, and then it's done. Thin it out and smooth it out. I actually have to reach out. Greg, speaking of Extra Life, I was at Emerald City Comic-Con last weekend, and there was a Game Master's shield made of wood and steel and magnets. That was gorgeous. Pricey, but gorgeous. And he's right here in Seattle area and wants to work with me to create him rails for that. So I got to reach out to him today. Have him out here to look at the wood I still have waiting to put to use from the down silver maple I was talking about earlier. And see if we can come to an arrangement for making those rails and using the wood, and there we go. All right, that is done. It is smoothed out. Let's go ahead and flare the end, assuming I can. Seeing all the different ways one has to move things around on their anvil to get things done. I understand why some smiths end up having blocks for their hardy tool. Well, this one was very cool because he had whiteboards that magnetically attached to the inside, so you could then you could keep track of your, as you know, keep track of the stats of your minions that are going against the players. You could write notes and pass them over. You could create you know, some sort of diagram, you know, all the things you would do on paper without having to waste paper. All right, let's see if I can do this. As before, toe and heel to push out and pull towards you. And it did work. Okay, cool. And then he also had an optional dice tower you could get, which had the ability to switch between private roll, public roll, or you know, no rolls. In other words, nobody could fuck with it. I'm sorry, mess with it. I just broke my own rules here. Damn it. All right. So it was very cool, quite pricey, not something everybody could afford, but if I could actually build rails for him to make the thing even more cool, I think that'd be a fun thing to do. All right, there's the flare. Let's see if I can scroll that. He had one that was made out of walnut that was absolutely gorgeous. All right, there we go. Take that over the edge. It's scrolling up nice. I don't have a massively hot fire going right now, but right now I don't need a massively hot fire. Too hot and I'll just burn up this really thin stuff. Just keep on rolling that over. Tighten it up. Nice little brush strokes. That's what scrolling is. Watching Roy on what he's doing. Oh, thanks, Greg. Have a great afternoon and the rest of the weekend. It was interesting to watch Roy doing this with his door knocker. I can't wait to see more of what he's doing with that. He doesn't even use, because of with what he's doing, he's not even using his regular smithing hammer. He's using a rawhide. Get over here, use this. There we go. Rawhide mallet. I have one of those, but I'm not worried about denting this at this point. So this material is definitely thinner than the last stuff. It wants to bend and flex on me every time I do anything. But I think that's enough. Actually, I think I want to scroll it just a hair more. Let's go ahead and get it warm enough to do that. I'm gonna have to hold it up so I don't get so much of the material hot. Gets hot fast, cools off fast, real thin stuff. We'll get better at this whole scrolling thing if it just annoys the bejesus out of me in the process. There we go. That's definitely hot enough to get it where I want it. There we go. There we go. All right. Now I go over here. How do I do this? Ah, that's right. Too much. Go back to the other side. There we go. There we go, nice and smooth looking. And pretty close to centered. I like it. I can definitely see that coming around on a wrist now. All right. Next, we have to cut it off, I think, to be able to do what I want to do next. So, let me get that. We'll go ahead and there. Nope. It's being silly. It does that from time to time. No idea why. It's the cam link. It's not the camera. That's interesting to learn. And I'm guessing I know why. And that is the hub that I'm having to use. So that's that one. Let's switch over here. I want to make sure I've actually been showing you something that moves. Yes. Okay, good. Go back over here. Turn that off. Plug it in. Yep. There we're back to where we should be. Well, almost. There we go. Let's get that cut off. Too far into the fire. Let's try it again. All right. Let's go over here, cut it off. Right about there. That'll give us more than enough material. That should just snap off now. Grab tongs. Come over here. There we have it. All right. Just so it's close to ready to be used again next time, let's go ahead and put this down so I'm not sitting here struggling so much with too many things in my hands. There we go. Safety second. There we go. I actually think I will work to clean that end up this time instead of like I did last time, leaving it unfinished. This I can put into the fire as well. Now the question is, can I do it without dropping it? We are getting to the point of the dropsies due to unusual shaped things. Nope, don't like it. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over here, grab a different set of tongs that still aren't the right kind of tongs to be using for this, but might actually work better. And they do. It'll work even better when I get it into the slot. Oop, there's the drop. Enjoy your beverage. Reminds me, I probably should hydrate. Cheers. You know, there are people out there that say, you don't like coffee if you don't drink it all in 15 minutes. I'm like, dude, you don't like coffee if you're not willing to drink it an hour after it's gotten cold. All right. Get this into the fire as well. Let's warm it up. Nope. That's why the tong clip was needed. But I don't think this tong clip is sized for this. So let's take a look. Yeah, it's going to slide right off. I need to make another tong clip specifically for these, or I need to adjust my reins. Probably the second. Probably the second. I don't normally use these tongs for such thin stock though, so let's try this again. We'll go over here. We'll grab it. We'll try it again. This time I won't let go. Don't catch falling hot metal. Not a good idea. Okay, so the fire is hot enough that just soaking in it, like Palmolive, got me to where I could actually do something with it, but we're going to go over here anyway. Safety third, and showed a silhouette of a hand miss. Oh yeah, that'll do it. That's the hardest way to learn that lesson. Wow. There we go. You can see it happening live, not Memorex, where I push back that metal so that it's not the cut off area as much. I don't know if I'll get it back to flat, but you're seeing it get, it's what's called upsetting. You hear about a blacksmith upsetting something, they're either talking about his wife or the work he's doing. Take out my tool rest. Don't need it at the moment. All right. And now that's ready for scrolling. Although I don't like that at all. That's a remnant of the cutoff. We're going to file that off. Because I'm not pushing that metal back in. I don't think. Yeah, that's not coming back. Actually, you know what? I can just cut that off. That's how shiny that is. And how sharp the edge of my anvil is. Right there at the heel. There it is. There we go. And as that's going to get scrolled under, I don't really have to file it. All right, back into the fire. All right. What you can't see me doing at the moment is cooling off all but like the very tip of this. So only the very tip does all the moving. But the time I didn't have it hot, really hot when I did it, so cooled off very fast. That in there. In the meantime, I'm going to pull this out so I don't burn it up. It will burn up. And we need to scroll it in the same direction as the other end, else it's going to look awful funny. So let's make sure I pay attention to what that was. All right, let's go ahead and get it warmer again. This could be that point where the old phrase, too many irons in the fire, might come to bite me. We'll find out. Take a look at this one. No, not hot enough. I'm going to set this one down for a second so I can focus on one thing real quick and get it out of there. They're both small pieces of metal, so they both have the ability to get too hot real fast. But more importantly, that one will get hot way too fast. So we'll focus on this one for a minute. I'll let my fire die down a little bit in that process. Get her back up to temp. It is nice that I don't burn up so much fuel because I have to actually turn the crank. But I do sometimes wonder if it'd be smart to set up a way to have an electric blower when I want it versus a hand crank blower. Or get the electric mower and a foot pedal. That'd probably be the smartest thing to do. I think what Roy was doing, that's what it sounded like. All right. Now to do it like this, you have to have a good grip. Because you're having to hold the metal and keep it from sliding out of your hand as you're doing all that. We're getting pretty close. Very little chamfer left. Silly little exercise, but these are the things that build skill. So you do the little exercises, build that skill, and at one point you'll find out that it's actually really useful that you built that skill. Because upsetting is something you do actually quite a bit of in ornamental and artistic blacksmithing to add mass in places that you didn't have the mass to start with while keeping the dimensions you wanted in other areas. So while this isn't really super compelling content, what you're seeing, as I've said before, is the journey of a new smith actually building the skills, not just working projects. Hey, Wayne. I have watched you, I've watched you smith, Sully, but I don't think I've ever seen, you know, an actual presentation of how things are set up. Yeah, I was thinking the Y gate. That's exactly what I was thinking, and have it so that when I want to use electric, because I don't have electricity out here. Right now I just use an EcoFlow, I think this is a Delta, to keep all the live streaming equipment up and running. And then of course you've seen the other things I have, which are battery operated as well. Running electricity, you know, an acre across, you know, from the house to the shop just isn't really a very economical thing to do, because it's not truly a shop. It's just a, you know, a shed we put out back. All right, I was talking through all that, and so I didn't actually heat the part I actually needed to heat. Instead, heated the whole dang thing. Oh, now see, I hadn't even thought of that. I mean, hairdryer mechanism I have thought about. I've talked about on this channel before that if you're a newbie and you want to get started doing this, there's no excuse not to, except that somebody you care about would freak out if you did. Work with them first on that. But other than that, go to your Goodwill, get a freaking hairdryer. If you're really smart, just so you don't burn up the hairdryer over time, you get in there and cut the, make sure you get one that has a switch that you can turn off the heat. And there you have it. That bevel is almost gone. You can hardly see it now. It's just a tiny little sliver right there. I think I'll heat it one more time and then call it done. And then you get yourself a pipe. And then if you don't trust me, you go over there to Speargrass Forge and you see how you just get a box of dirt. Or if you only want to get that far, you dig a hole in your backyard that's not too deep. Think marbles, as in when you had a pot in the ground for putting your marbles. You lay that pipe pointing down into that. You build your mound of charcoal, and I don't mean the lumps, I mean actual lump charcoal, not those briquettes that nobody should be using at this point. So full of garbage. For food, I mean. They shouldn't be using it. Okay. There we go. And now it would be hard pressed for somebody just stand by to know that I actually cut that off on a beveled hot cut tool. All right, silly amount of work that I just did for that, but I feel good about the fact that I did it. The right amount of work to do for that would have been to go ahead and break out the bandsaw, by the way. That was, how much time did I just spend to do that? I'm over my 11 o'clock mark, which means it's time for me to call it done for the day, which means I didn't finish my project. Dag nabbit. But I think my wife has plans for me, so I do have to call it a successful live stream and switch over here to this one, because no sense looking at an anvil. It's not going to get any more use today. Go ahead and put away my tools and bid you fine folks a wholehearty farewell and good weekend. It's been a real pleasure having the folks that join me on the live stream get in here, add some value to the live stream, give me a reason to talk rather than just make up junk as I go. And as Wayne just said, be safe, and as John Switzer always says, get out in your shop, make something. Love and light all.